Have you ever driven alone at night and felt like you weren't really alone? Imagine this. You're driving down a deserted highway. The road stretches endlessly, the trees on both sides casting eerie shadows. The only sound, the soft hum of your car engine, and maybe the faint whisper of someone sitting right behind you. Tonight, I bring you a terrifying tale. A story so chilling it will make you think twice before checking your rearview mirror. This is not just any horror story. This is a warning. Because once you hear about the silent passenger, you'll never drive alone at night the same way again. It was past midnight. The road stretched endlessly through the forest, shrouded in darkness. The only source of light was the dim glow of the streetlights, too far apart to provide any comfort. Inside the car, Rohan, a young man in his late 20s, gripped the steering wheel tightly. His eyes flickered between the empty road ahead and the rearview mirror. He was alone, or so he thought. He had been driving for hours, trying to reach home before dawn. But the deeper he drove into the forest road, the heavier the air became, as if something unseen was watching him, waiting. Then, it happened. A sudden coldness filled the car. The temperature dropped sharply, and his breath became visible in the air. Rohan checked the car's heater, still on. Then, from the corner of his eye, he saw it. A shadow. A faint, human-like silhouette sitting in the back seat, barely visible in the dim light. He froze. His hands tightened around the steering wheel. His mind screamed, "I was alone when I got in the car." Right? He forced himself to look at the rearview mirror again. The seat was empty. His chest heaved with relief. "It's just my mind playing tricks on me," he whispered. But deep inside, he knew something was wrong. The uneasy silence in the car was deafening. Rohan turned on the radio, hoping for some distraction. Suddenly, a voice whispered from the back seat. Unknown voice. "You're going the wrong way." Rohan slammed the brakes, the car skidding to a stop. His eyes darted to the rearview mirror. Empty, but the cold presence remained. His breathing ragged, he turned slowly. Nothing, just the darkness of the back seat. He swallowed hard and shook his head, trying to compose himself. "Just my imagination." He pressed the accelerator, eager to leave the lonely highway behind. But then, something caught his eye. In the side mirror, a pale face with hollow eyes staring at him. Not outside, not on the road. Inside, sitting in the back seat. Watching him. His stomach twisted. His fingers clenched the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned white. "Who's there?" he shouted, his voice shaking. Silence. But the presence. It was still there. He refused to look back. His pulse pounded in his ears. And then, the radio crackled, static filling the car. Then a voice. A woman's voice. Unknown woman. "Turn back, before it's too late." Rohan's throat went dry. His hands trembled as he reached for the volume knob. But before he could touch it, the radio turned off on its own. Then, the sound of a seatbelt clicking, as if someone or something just fastened itself in. A road sign appeared up ahead. It read, "Exit 2 kilometers." Rohan felt a wave of relief. If he could just reach that turn, he'd be out of this cursed highway. He pressed the accelerator harder. But then, his headlights flickered, and in the brief darkness between the flickers, the shadowed figure in the back seat grew closer. Each flicker brought it nearer. First in the middle seat, then just behind his shoulder. He could feel its cold breath on his neck. A whisper, "You can't leave." Rohan screamed. The car swerved violently. The exit sign flashed past him. He missed it. He gritted his teeth, trying to focus. He had to keep driving. Then, a horrifying realization struck him. The road ahead, it was the same. The same trees, the same road signs, the same exit 2 kilometers sign. "No, that's not possible," he whispered. His hands trembled as he checked the time. 1:43 a.m. He drove faster. A few minutes later, 1:43 a.m. The time wasn't changing. He was trapped. A faint sound filled the car. A soft giggle. Then, a cold hand gripped his shoulder. His entire body froze. He couldn't breathe, couldn't move. And then, a whisper right next to his ear. "Unknown entity. You pick me up. Now you can never drop me off." Rohan finally snapped. He slammed the brakes and jumped out of the car. Panting, trembling, eyes darting everywhere. But there was no one. No passenger. Only the car's back door, wide open, as if someone had just stepped out. But there were no footprints. Just the silent, empty road stretching endlessly ahead. And then, the sound of a distant car horn. Rohan turned. In the distance, another car was approaching. A lone driver, heading down the same road. Unaware, Rohan wanted to scream, to warn them. But his voice was gone. And behind him from the car's back seat, a pair of hollow eyes watched, waiting for the next passenger. Do you want to know about backstory of the woman? The cursed passenger? So, I tell you. Many years ago, on the same deserted highway, a woman named Mira was traveling home late at night. She had just finished visiting her parents in a nearby village and was eager to return to the city. The road was quiet, the air thick with fog, and the only sound was the hum of her car engine. She had heard stories, tales of people vanishing on this very highway, of whispers in the dark, and of a cursed presence that lurked in the back seat of lonely travelers. But like everyone else, she dismissed them as mere ghost stories. Until she met him. At around 1:43 a.m., she noticed a man standing at the side of the road, hitchhiking. He was tall, dressed in a black coat, his face hidden in shadows. Mira was hesitant, but something about his presence compelled her to stop. She rolled down her window just a little. "Are you okay?" she asked. The man didn't speak. He only smiled. A chilling, unnatural grin. Against her better judgment, she unlocked the car. As soon as the man stepped in, an unbearable coldness filled the vehicle. She could feel it. Something was terribly wrong. His breath was slow and deep. His head never turned, but she could sense his gaze burning into her from behind. Then, In a voice that sounded like it came from a place beyond death, he whispered, "You shouldn't have stopped." Fear gripped her heart. She pressed the accelerator, desperate to escape. But no matter how fast she drove, the road ahead remained the same. The same trees, the same highway signs. Exit 2 kilometers. No matter how long she drove, the exit never came. Panicked, she looked at the rearview mirror, and the man was gone. But she could feel him, his breath on her neck, his cold fingers grazing her skin. Then, as suddenly as he had appeared, the car flipped over. A violent crash, a deafening scream, and then darkness. When rescue teams arrived in the morning, they found Mira's car completely crushed in a ditch beside the road. But her body was never found. Some say she was taken by the man. Others believe she was doomed to repeat her final journey forever. Now, at 1:43 a.m., she appears in the back seat of those traveling alone, warning them. But the curse is merciless. If the driver listens, they might escape. If they ignore her, they become the next silent passenger. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe to my channel. And do you want to know about what is the dressed in a black coat man? So write 10 comments so I upload this story next part.